Hey guys, welcome back to the Harlan Project. Got a cool little project here. It is a beautiful January morning, shorts and a t-shirt. You northerners are probably jealous. It is 68 degrees right now, so we are enjoying this cool weather before it gets hot again. So if you know me at all or you've been around me long enough, you've probably heard me use the phrase, if it's free, it's for me. This is one of those examples. So this is actually a free gift from my dad, which upon first inspection, I think it's actually a pretty good free gift. It's a 36-gallon fuel transfer tank that he's had from his days of working that's just kind of been sitting around. Of course, as you guys know, with anything that's been sitting around, especially fuel tanks and steel, they can rust. So I thought to myself, I better be careful what I get myself into. No surprise, right? You'd expect that. About 7-8 gallons. So I said, okay, well, that's bad fuel. I got to get that out of there. So there's a bung on the side of the tank here. That's a great design. Drained that, got all the fuel out. And as I got to the last little bit of the fuel, it was no longer a water fuel mix, which is obviously bad, and that's why I was getting rid of it. But out came some brown substance. And I think we all know what that brown is. That's rust, right? That's not a surprise in a tank like this. The question became is how bad is it? You know, is it salvageable? Can I keep using it? So the good news is I inspected the inside of the tank here. Trying to hold you steady, but as you can see, it's actually not too bad in there. I mean, that's about the best I can let you look without going out of focus here, but even the sidewalls look pretty good. And as far as I can tell, looking around the corner, what you're seeing straight down is pretty consistent across the bottom of the tank. All right, so you're Inspector 1 and Inspector 2. And there's some, let me see here. We'll have some fun. Look in there, what do you see?
I see black stuff.
Black stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you see, Jacob?
Black.
Okay, what?
Like kind of bubblish and bumpyish.
Ooh, that's a good description.
I saw the bumpy.
You saw the bumpies too?
Yeah.
Okay, so boys,
Yeah?
what do you think that bumpy, blackish,
Me.
bubbly stuff is?
I know what that is.
What?
It is gas.
No.
I know what it is. It is oil.
Oil. Solid guesses, but wrong.
Fuel.
Fuel?
Yeah.
Do you know the difference between fuel and gas?
Yeah.
What?
Fuel is diesel and gas is not diesel.
Dude, that's good. That's so good.
And I have one more thing.
Okay, go ahead. One more thing.
Gas is gasoline, and diesel is diesel.
Dies is diesel. Dies is diesel. Okay, I'm gonna tell you what it is. You ready?
I think I have guessed.
All right, hold on. No, we did your guess. Let's get to it. These folks want to know what's in there. You're our friends. Okay, so what you're seeing in there is rust. Rust. Yeah, that's when metal is not happy anymore.
It's rust.
Yeah, it's rust. Exactly. Okay, so what do we do about that rust? Any ideas? Should we throw it away?
No, we should paint it.
That's right.
We should paint.
Yeah, you can paint over rust. That's good. You even sell special paint for rust.
Or you could sell this.
It'd be hard to paint the inside of this tank, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey,
Or you could take it apart and then you put it in.
I have a special magic trick.
What?
Okay. Truth is, I don't know how magical it is, but I've seen people on the internet do this. And that's good old vinegar here. Okay? There are just some things that God made that work for a lot of things. And vinegar will help with rust inside of a tank. And actually, I think that vinegar will do well in here because the rust just really isn't that bad. Now, this is a pretty low percentage acidity. It's only 5%, so I think this is just your general kind of, grocery store vinegar. I'm sure you can buy some stronger stuff.
Is that vinegar like, if you put your mouth on it, will it sting?
It's like, you know what it is? Like salt and vinegar chips that we like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how they make them?
Mm-hmm.
With that?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
But it will burn.
So, this is what we're going to do, boys. We're going to put this whole bottle in here, and we're going to let it just sit in there and do its magic for a day, and then we'll come back and see how it looks. and then we'll start to clean out the tank, and then we can use it. And once we fill it up, guess what?
What?
We can put some non-ethanol fuel in here, have a ton on hand to run the four-wheelers, to run the mower, to run the skid steer,
To run the truck.
to fill up Mommy's car when she's low on gas, because that happens a lot.
Dad, and guess what? We can use our. Can we wash our truck today? Oh, and Dad, I can.
Okay.
Know
All right. You can see how these boys, their attention span is about what you'd expect for their age. All right. Who wants to help me get this in there?
Me.
All right. I figured I would get 2 helpers. Is there something that we can put in here to help?
Yeah, vinegar.
Well, yeah, I should have been more clear. To get it from the bottle into here.
I know what to use.
What?
The orange thing.
You're right. Okay, but let's use the blue one because it's going to be a little bigger. All right. You know what this is called?
Yeah.
So what Jacob is referring to is I have a smaller orange thing, a funnel. So we put that bad boy right there, and we can go to town. So I'm finally getting back to the tank project. It's been about a week since I was out here fooling around with this, and I definitely got ahead of myself. I'll try to explain. So in the earlier part of the video, you saw me fooling around here with my boys. We were putting vinegar in here. The good news is the vinegar did exactly what they said it would. On the bottom of this tank, where I first saw the rust, the spots of rust, and it was light, but you could see where that vinegar was actually at work converting that. So upon a second inspection, I actually noticed that some of that rust, and it's generally light surface rust, was actually on the walls of the tank on all 4 sides. So I thought, okay, well let me just roll the tank around here. I'll try to put some clips of me moving the tank around. And I had enough liquid in there such that wherever I spun the tank, the surface area of the tank was fully submerged in vinegar in this case. So the good news is, while it worked, I think on that initial run when the vinegar was clean, it must not be potent enough, or it just must be too contaminated at this point, because it doesn't appear that it did a very good job on the sidewalls of the tank. So I really need to just clean this out and then add some more vinegar and let it do its job, continuing to roll the tank and clean and swap new vinegar as needed. But that's okay. No matter what, I got ahead of myself. And the reason why is, how I want to use this tank is I want to be able to lift it up, put it in my truck, go fill it up, in this case with non-ethanol gas, which the closest station I have for me is a good 10-minute drive. So in fact, the best time for me to fill it up is it's right next to my church. So I just fill it up after leaving church, and then I'd have 36 gallons or so to work with until I need it again, which will last me a long time for the machines I use it in. But then I want to be able to take it out of my truck and I want to put it in the garage. I don't want to be toting this thing around all the time. So I want to get some wheel casters on the bottom, whether that's with some type of frame or I just bolt them right into the or if I just bolt them right into the welds that are already down there, that can be down the road. But I also got to thinking, how the heck do I even know this thing is empty, or at least coming empty, before I just go to pull the handle one day and it doesn't work? And you know how that goes, right? You pull the handle and you find out you're empty when you need it most. And on top of that, when your wife has left and she's out shopping and you're the one watching the 4 kids, and now it's just not a matter of loading up your tank and going to get it. Now you got to load up all the kids, and you got the complainers and da-da-da-da-da. You think I'm a dad? I bet some of you dads know what I'm talking about. So anyway, I have good kids. They're good kids. But you know what I'm saying? When you're in a hurry, that's the last thing you want to do is you want to fool around with this. So I thought to myself, hey, why don't I put a fuel gauge in here? So one option for a fuel gauge that I could have done, which I actually really like the idea, is to just tap a hole here on the top, tap a hole on the bottom, run some 90s, and then put a clear tube in between. I can mark it to where it's half full, but I mean, the old eye test in a clear tube is going to tell you where the gas is at inside, where the level is. And so that would work great. But I didn't want to do that. And the reason why is this thing is going to be moving around. It's going to go from in my garage where four-wheelers can crash into it, bicycles can crash into it, into the back of my truck where it could tip over, where something also that's in the back of the truck can slide forward and slam into it and break that tube. You see where I'm going with this, all right? And then from time to time, I'll probably even put this on my trailer when we take the four-wheelers places. Another opportunity for something to slide into a gauge like that, break it off, and you know, with the cost of fuel these days, there goes $100. I keep calling it fuel, gas. There goes $100 of gas all over wherever it dumps out at. So that quickly became a non-option for me, and I think for good reason. So, you know, again, trying to keep this thing as close to free as possible, which it's quickly not that anymore, but it's also very affordable. So I wanted to do something low cost. What I found on Amazon, and there's a million different options, this is a replacement gauge, fuel gauge, I believe, for some type of side-by-side, just an aftermarket fuel gauge, and it's a screw top, right? So you would just screw it on. Well, I don't have a top to screw it on, but I can cut a hole in here, and this can just sit in here, and as this floats up, simple, right? Now, I could not find one that would get to the very bottom of the tank. So if you can see, if I set this flush, I'm a little short. And for me to find something of this style, or even one of the, you know, the lever swings, we all know those, like the old little boat tanks where the rod just moves back and forth, which, by the way, I don't think those are as accurate as these, at least in terms of giving you detail. So if for whatever reason, by the time I tried to get to, you know, about an 18-inch, 18.5-inch, 19-inch type of run that I would need to get to the bottom of this, I was in the $80, $90, $100 for a fuel gauge. And I really wanted a fuel gauge, but I just wasn't going to do that. I don't know what the heck I paid for this, to be honest with you. I can't remember anymore. I'll put a comment on the screen, but it wasn't much. So here's the deal. It's going to tell me I'm empty before I'm really empty, but that's okay. However, there is a second part of this that's interesting. So I'm going to try to do this, but here's the pump that goes inside. Well, just take a look at where the pump stops, okay? That's the thread tape. So let's just say I put it all the way in. Well, notice that the pump, the pickup for the pump, is well above the bottom. In fact, I believe, if I remember correctly, this float is actually almost dead even. I will admit, that was just luck. So, at the very least, this will tell me when I'm approaching empty, to not when my tank is empty, but to where my hand pump won't actually be able to suck any fuel up anymore, which I'm okay with. Now, I could extend that pump. I could extend the pickup lower. And I don't know, maybe one day I'll want to do that. But for now, with that pickup being suspended a few inches above the bottom, it's kind of a safety, right? I mean, because if there's any trash on the bottom, or in this case, you even got a little rust in the tank, most of that's just going to be sitting on the bottom. This 99% of the time when I'm using this, it's just going to be sitting in my garage still. It's not going to be getting rocked around where that material is suspended in the liquid. So it'll just be sitting on the bottom. That pickup tube will be a few inches above all the trash. If hopefully there won't be trash, but if there is trash, it'll be suspended above that. It won't pick it up. It'll help things stay clean inside my machines. But because of the condition of this tank, because of what's in there, and because I'm just doing a kind of a handyman special on the rust treatment, I thought, you know what? There's another thing I can do. And so the other thing I am going to add on here is a simple fuel filter. And I'll put a link to this in the description. This whole assembly was, again, can't remember the cost off my head. I'll write it here somewhere. But very low cost. I mean, a very low cost item to ensure that whatever gets sucked up in this hand pump, okay, has to go through here, through a filter, out the hose, and is coming out clean, which by the time it gets into my four-wheeler, my mower, or anything else I'm using, it already has an inline filter. So I feel like I'm going to be pretty well protected. So there is one more thing I'd like to do to this tank, because I am going to be moving it back and forth. It has hooks on it, but these hooks are not centered. I have no idea why they would put the hooks off center. It makes no sense to me. But, and if you can picture this, I'm using my machine. Now I can put forks under this, which if I have this on casters, that's an option, okay? But I don't know that it's a very good option because the tank could tip over forward, right? It can always tip. A better option to me is to pick it up from these hooks, suspending it on a chain or a strap of some sort. Now, because these hooks are not centered, this thing is going to lean. I don't know why you would put hooks on something like this and not have them in the center. It's just not a great enough distance for, you tell me. Maybe you guys know, but it's just kind of one of those things that I think when they did the design phase, or I don't know. Anyway, you get my point. I can cut these off and I can put them in the center, which wherever I cut, I'm exposing metal, risking thinning the metal and putting a hole in it, which then I'll have to weld and grind and repaint. Or I typically have scrap metal laying around and I have this little piece of tubing. It's a little thinner diameter than this, but that's okay. I can make a similar loop out of this, and then I can weld another hook right on the side, equidistance, and over here, and that will actually give me 4 places to chain, totally overkill, but it will give me 4 places to chain and hook from, so that way when I'm lifting this with, say, the fork of my machine, my skid steer, this thing will hang true and straight and would actually have a hard time tipping over. I feel a lot better about that, especially once it's full of fuel. When it's light, it's probably not that big of a deal. In fact, right now, I mean, I can pick it up by hand, but full of fuel, I keep saying fuel, full of gas, it's not gonna do it. So I think that will be a nice little upgrade. All right, that brings me to me wasting my time with the vinegar. Before I can do any of this, okay, I gotta clean the residual fuel out of here so I don't make this thing go boom. So I'm gonna clean it out with some water and then I'm gonna fill it with water, and then I wanna drill a hole for my fuel gauge, so that will go in, and then I will grind the paint down. I'll do my best to bend this nice and round like the other. Don't think that's gonna happen. We'll tack weld these on. I think then we go get more vinegar, we do that treatment again, and then we can get to filling this up. Dinner's ready? Yeah. Yes. Dinner's ready. Okay. See you afterwards. Or wait, what do you do in YouTube? You do this. See ya. Or you do, in YouTube you say, and I'll see you after dinner like this. I've never been a very good snapper. Got all the vinegar out, got her rinsed out, looking pretty good inside. So we're gonna use this heat gun to try to dry it out as fast as possible and hope it doesn't flash rust. Let me see if I can give you a look. Still some residual on the sidewall. After days of fooling with this tank, we are finally at the point where we can get it back together and actually use it. I have had so many scheduling conflicts. I have just not been able to stay on top of this, but I am glad we are finally here. So we're gonna get the pump back in, we're gonna get the fuel gauge back in, we're gonna get the filter installed, and we've got all our hardware over there, and I'm just gonna be using some thread sealant. I like this stuff better than tape. You can use tape. Tape works fine. Problem with tape is when you go to back it off, you actually start to back the tape off. This is very forgiving for that. And that's going to be important because I'm not sure exactly how this hand pump will be, where it will be clocked when it's all said and done when I set up the filter. So, and I put the hose and all that on there. So I want to make sure I'm using this thread sealant, which again, I use it for a lot of things I'm a big fan of, and it lasts a long time. It'll hold up in a warm garage. So going to mount this back on the 90 that it came with, I cut off a piece, just being a little old and dry rotted. And as a result, this new piece is just a little stiff. So you saw me use this heat gun earlier. This is another one of my little Amazon babies. These are such great handy tools to have around. I mean, for all kinds of things like this. I mean, you saw me heat the tank earlier. You know, most of what I use it for is doing wiring. So I'll put a link for this down in the I'll put a link for this down below. I don't think I paid much for it. The only thing with these, you want to be really careful. They get hot fast. And see, I don't even know if you can see that rubber glossing over. See how fast it's glossing over? I mean, it won't take much. In fact, if you're not in a rush, which I tend to always be, this one has 2 speeds. That first speed is your best friend because this second speed, it can get hot very fast, but we're just trying to soften it up a little bit. Look at that. See how easy that went on? So, great little tool to have. And unfortunately, I lost my band clamp for this, so that'll just have to be temporary until I can get one a little smaller, because certainly that doesn't look good. But we're getting close. Let's get our fuel gauge in. So you may remember in the beginning of the video, I told you this was an aftermarket fuel gauge for a side-by-side. And it's meant to screw on to an existing bung for the fuel tank for a side-by-side. Obviously, I don't have that. So I'm kind of stuck here with my friend Power Glue. It's just your everyday construction glue. It's clear, which is why I like it. I've had a lot of success with this on a lot of things. If you watch the shed build, then you'll see I used it there, but I've used it plenty, and I'm just going to be very generous with this. It's not something I'm really concerned about with how it looks. I'm pretty confident that's going to work just fine. That's not a pressurized cap. And when I got the cap down to the bottom, I still had about 1/8 of an inch to squeeze the glue out. And then I ran my finger around it. Once that stuff sets up, it's pretty solid. As bad as I want to go fill this right now, it would still be wise for me to let all of this set up, including the thread sealant and the glue. So another day we will wait. Today is the day. I'm excited. Isn't it funny, the little things that you get excited about? I mean, it's just a gas tank, but I'm finally going to be able to have bulk non-ethanol gasoline here at the house. Pumped, not lifting up, not pouring, not multiple trips of 5-gallon cans, pumped and through a filter. I'm stoked. So you remember when we were doing all this, I put these extra hooks. You can see there, here. And in my brain, I was thinking, I'll use the forks, I'll come over top, and I'll lift the tank up and I'll set it in, and when I take it out, do the same. And the weight hanging below the forks would make sure it wouldn't tip over, because it couldn't tip over, it's hanging. And you'll see some more videos here. You've probably already seen them by the time you're watching this, but let's just say, in many ways, I've got a lot of confidence in this machine as it's configured. In other ways, I have lost confidence in this machine as it's configured. Okay, sorry for adjusting, it's my microphone. What do I mean by that? I don't have any counterweight on this machine. Not beyond my big rear end, but that doesn't help me when I get off of it. This fork, I weighed this in one of my videos, but the forks and the back plate were 261 pounds. I added this back plate and some additional gussets. I'm gonna say, let's say another 20 pounds. So I've already got 280 pounds on the front of this. And that's 36 gallons filled with gasoline. What is gasoline, like 6 pounds a gallon or something? It's gonna get front heavy. Without counterweights on the back, it's getting to that weight where, based on my experience using this machine, I don't know if I want that much weight that high in the air, because it's got to go that much higher if I'm hanging it, okay? And, you know, our brain has the ability to mess with us, right? And so I'm sitting here thinking about how, all right, I could go do this, and what happens if it falls? It's full of gasoline, like, boom! So, not that anything I'm doing here is exempt from falling. But what, okay guys, let me just get to the point. I've now put a bracket underneath this with casters, which means it's kind of a built-in pallet. So why not just run my forks underneath it, lift it up? I can still strap it from falling forward, but now I'm underneath it. And so the chances of a chain snapping, a strap snapping, one of these welds cracking, although that's not a I'm awesome type of thing, but that's like the least of my worries. It's just, to me, it's just gonna be the better way to do it. You and I, we're gonna see how this works together. Let's get it loaded up. Now it's on casters, so I can cheat. Look, when I had it full of water, it did really roll nice. Now, I got this thing all freshly cleaned up with some new paint. I'm not ready to scratch it yet, so this is just the throw cushion off my boat. You can laugh at me if you want, that's okay. With these ratchet straps, to any redneck, they're good for about 1 million different things. If you're a redneck and you think I insulted you, that was a compliment, because I consider myself one. Even if I don't look it. Because I think of a redneck as somebody who just gets the job done. I'm not sure if you could tell what was going on there. My dad has a Ford truck, I have a Ford truck, so I just assumed that this would fit in the back. And I didn't take any measurements, I just tossed it up here. Well, my bed cover railings narrow the inside of the bed just enough that this tank is not going to fit in here horizontally. Now, I'm just curious if it will tip forward if I get off. Okay, so that's good. While the wheels don't have a lot of pressure on them, I'm going to unlock them. And make sure they're in free spin. Okay, so I mean, at this stage, I could back the forklift out, but I actually think the safer thing to do is just to roll it. And it illustrates how well this thing rolls on these casters full of weight. These are just some Harbor Freight casters that I picked up. I think they're rated for 125 pounds each, so more than enough. All right, we are right there to use this thing. I got a leftover jug here from the vinegar. It's cleaned out. I want to go ahead and pump some of the gas in here first, just in case any crud makes it past that filter. It shouldn't. That's what the job of the filter is. But this first tank is probably the one that's most susceptible to getting crud. So after the first tank, these are so cheap, I'll probably just replace that filter. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it's doing. But long anticipated moment. There's some air in here, so I don't know how long it will take to build pressure. Oh, I hear something. Oh, I hear it going into the filter. Oh yeah, not yet, but it's going in there. I can hear it. There it comes. Yeah, baby. That's gasolina. Oh, so look, watch. It pumps two directions, so both directions. All right, let's just stop there. This non-ethanol stuff's expensive. I won't go wasting a bunch of this now. I'm just kidding. If this is clean, I can go ahead and put it right into a machine. All right. I mean, it's pretty clean. There's one little, I'll show you. There's one little bug in there. For all I know, he was living inside the hose. Remember, that hose hadn't been used in a long time. Off camera, I realized I have a little screen. I'll just run that gasoline back through the screen, put it right back in this tank. It's not ethanol. It's way too expensive to just punt, so that was not a good thought. I was thinking about something when I was filling it up. Remember that gap below my fuel gauge? Well, that gap is when I don't get a reading. My thought was, once that gauge starts to show some movement, that's basically my reserve, because remember, my pickup tube doesn't get all the way to the bottom. And so I said, I wonder how much my reserve is. The gasoline isn't all the way to the top. It's somewhere right in here, which is, let's just call it 20 inches for easy math. I was able to put 37.5 gallons in here. So this is a 36-gallon tank, bone dry, 37.5 gallons. Well, if you take 37.5 gallons, you divide that by 20, you get roughly 1.9 gallons. Well, I've got a 3-inch or so gap between the bottom of this tank and the bottom of my float, the bottom of my tank, and the bottom of this pickup. So that's a little less than 6-gallon reserve, and like too much reserve if you ask me. Now, I don't care so much that this stops reading with 6 gallons left. That's fine. I know I'm basically down to my last full tank on my lawnmower. What I do care about is that this won't keep pumping with 6 gallons left. I'd like it to be closer to 3 gallons. That would give me about 1.5 inches of liquid still on the bottom here, which I think would be enough buffer. That makes me want to lower this down at least another inch or so. That will give me you know, a 4-gallon reserve, which again is plenty. Hey, don't touch your remote. I'm not done with you yet. Hit that subscribe button on your right and the like button on the left. Come on, guys, this was a lot of work. Help me out, help a brother out, all right? I hope you liked this. I hope this was fun. This was cool for me. I'm excited. I got 37.5 gallons of non-ethanol gasoline in-house, ready to go, ready to fill up all my equipment. So this is a great tool for the garage. Drop a comment below. Would you have done something differently? Got any ideas for me loading and unloading? Could I have done that better? I will tell you, a little nerve-wracking knowing that I'm holding this much weight of gasoline up in the air. So I'm glad I won't be doing that too often. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the Heartland Project. We'll see you on the next one.